You know, in our hyper-complex world, whether we're talking about oil rigs or cybersecurity, risk isn't just some number on a spreadsheet. It's a story that's waiting to unfold. So the real question is, how do you read that story? And maybe more importantly, how do you change the ending?
After some truly catastrophic disasters, a lot of high-stakes industries learned a really hard lesson. The old-school risk models just weren't cutting it anymore. They needed a new tool, something that could do more than just calculate risk. They needed to see it, to communicate it, and to build a real shield against it.
Okay, so let's dive right in. In this explainer, we are breaking down what's called the bow tie method. And honestly, it's become the gold standard for visualizing that critical relationship between what causes a potential disaster and what happens if you can't stop it. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll cover the basics. What even is a bow tie? Then we're going to build one together piece by piece. After that, we'll see how it's evolved into a seriously high-precision tool. We'll also look at where it shines and, yeah, where it falls short. And finally, we'll talk about how you can choose the right approach for what you need. All right, first up, what is this thing at its core? Really, it's all about turning a vague, abstract threat into a super clear visual story. One that everyone, and I mean everyone, from an operator on the floor to an executive in the boardroom can actually understand. And this quote just nails it. You gotta think of the bow tie less like a technical chart and more like a story map. It shows you the entire path from a potential threat all the way to a potential outcome. But here's the most important part. It highlights all the points along that path where you can step in and change that story for the better.
Okay, so here's the more official definition. Right in the middle, you've got this thing called the top event. That's the moment you lose control. On either side, you map out the threats that could cause it and the consequences that could follow. But the real magic of this method, it's how it visualizes the barriers you put in place to manage that entire chain of events. So how do we actually build one of these? Well, to really get it, let's break the diagram down and put it together one component at a time.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts with the hazard. And listen, this is a really key distinction. A hazard isn't the bad thing happening. Nope, it's the source of energy or the condition that could cause harm. Think a giant tank of liquefied petroleum gas, or maybe a server that's jam-packed with sensitive data. It's a necessary part of business, but it holds that potential for danger. Now, the center of our bow tie diagram, the knot, if you will, is the top event. This is that one critical moment where you lose control. The disaster hasn't happened yet, but the situation has definitely crossed a major safety line. It's not the explosion, it's the gas leak. It's not the massive data breach, it's the single unauthorized access. This is the tipping point. Okay, so we've got our center. Now let's build out the sides. On the left side, we map out all the threats. These are the direct causes that could trigger our top event, things like a corroded pipe, or even just simple human error. And then on the right side, we map the consequences, all the potential bad outcomes we're desperately trying to avoid, like fires, injuries, or massive financial losses. And right here, this is where the bow tie goes from being a drawing to a real management tool. The barriers. These are the safeguards you put in place. They're the controls, the procedures, the technologies, anything designed to either stop a threat in its tracks or, if that fails, to stop the top event from leading to a devastating consequence. They're what make up your shield. Now, these barriers, they come in two very distinct flavors. On the left side of the diagram, we've got prevention barriers. Think of things like certified training or a pressure relief valve. Their one and only job is to stop the top event from ever happening. But if it does happen, we have to rely on the barriers on the right side, the mitigation barriers. This is your fire suppression system or your emergency data backup. Their job is all about damage control. Okay, so having a simple visual is great for getting everyone on the same page. But let's be real, in high-risk industries, you need a lot more than just a pretty picture. And that's why the bow tie has evolved into something way, way more powerful. And this right here illustrates why a simple visual isn't always enough. You've probably heard of the famous Swiss cheese model. It explains that no single barrier is perfect. Every single one has weaknesses or holes. A disaster only really happens when the holes in all your different layers of defense line up just right, allowing a threat to pass straight through. The bow tie helps us see those layers and, more importantly, helps us find where those holes might be. This brings us to the two main ways a bow tie can be used. The qualitative approach, that's the visual story we've been talking about. It's fantastic for identifying what could go wrong. But then you have the quantitative approach, which gives you the mathematical proof. It shifts the question from what could happen to how likely is it to happen by assigning failure probabilities. And that is absolutely essential for regulatory compliance in industries like oil and gas. And to get that mathematical proof, you integrate the bow tie with other really powerful methods, like LOPA. By assigning a specific probability of failure to every single barrier, you can calculate the exact residual risk. That's the risk that's left over after all your controls are in place. This is what transforms the bow tie from a static diagram into a dynamic, data-driven safety tool.
Of course, no tool is perfect, right? And a smart user always knows both its strengths and its weaknesses. So let's take an honest look at where the bow tie is a total superstar and where you need to be a little cautious.
I mean, the versatility is just incredible. It got its start in petrochemicals, but now you see it everywhere. Maritime transport uses it to prevent collisions, cybersecurity teams use it to map out potential attack paths, hospitals use it to improve patient safety. Heck, it's even being used to manage risks in food delivery supply chains. It's amazing. But it is so crucial to acknowledge its blind spots. For one, each diagram focuses on just one top event, so a full analysis means you need a lot of diagrams. The basic format is also pretty static, so it can miss complex timing issues. And if you're not careful, it can become a total visual mess, which completely defeats the whole purpose of being clear. So, knowing all of this, how do you actually put it into practice? Well, like with most things, it really comes down to choosing the right tool for the job. Look, for a small organization or maybe just a preliminary analysis, a simple Excel or PDF template can be a great starting point. But its biggest limitation is that it's static. It's just a snapshot in time. For those high-risk sectors that need to prove compliance and manage safety on a daily basis, specialized software is pretty much non-negotiable. These platforms turn the diagram into a living, breathing system. And that right there, that is the ultimate goal. The real power isn't in just drawing the picture once. It's in creating a dynamic management system that is constantly auditing the health of your barriers. Is that safety valve being properly maintained? Is that employees' training certification up to date? That's what turns a simple analysis into true resilience. So when you boil it all down, it comes back to one thing: integrity. It doesn't matter if you're using a free template or some fancy software, the tool is only as good as the honesty you bring to it. Admitting where you're vulnerable isn't a sign of weakness, it's the absolute foundation of strength. It's the first step to preventing a crisis. Ultimately, the bow tie method gives you a language to read and to rewrite, the stories of risk that are all around us. So the only question left is, are you prepared to start reading?